These are the complete interviews with the subjects for the documentary Encounters. The only editing performed on the footage are camera cuts, sound correction, and minor color corrections.
They caused me to have a head injury, so I'm recovering from that's a whole other story. They manipulate.
Gotcha. Well, let's
Okay.
dig in. You just mentioned about the UFO or the spaceship that you saw during the fireworks.
Mm-hmm.
How often do you see what we would call UFOs, unidentified lights and stuff in the sky? And I guess it's not always at night with you either.
No, I've seen some during the daytime, and I see them sometimes at sunset. I'll be looking over the mountain range, and I see the sun, bouncing off the different little things all around. And it's like, wow, we have a party tonight. But I remember I was living on the east side of town, and one of the neighbors who lived there, wait a minute,
Okay.
dog's growling. One of the neighbors asked me, do you believe in UFOs? And I said, yeah. And she said, well, we exchanged phone numbers because she lived in one building, I lived in another. And she said, I will let you know if they're out tonight. Would you like to see them? And I'm like, I hadn't seen a UFO, since I was a child, or had been actually on the spaceship. But my first face to face of the underside of a UFO, I was 9 years old. So I went, yeah, let's see how this works. So it was about dusk, and we could see them up in the sky, and she was pointing them out. And there's some that were long, it was going up and down and spinning with the red and blue lights, and some had red and white lights. And we were watching the helicopters from the Air Force and the police helicopters doing maneuvers, and then they would go, and then one just shot straight across the sky, and we could see it. Well, that one was also up there during the day. We'd go out just about every night to see if they were there. There was a group of us, like 15 of us. We were like, what are you doing? Oh, we're looking at the UFOs. Oh, we don't have them. Well, look right there. And like, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
But it was daytime. I was walking my dog, and I just, you don't ever want to back talk to an alien. Trust me. You don't want to give them a piece of your mind either, especially if I don't know if they're in a cranky mood or they just don't like being told what to do. So anyway, I'm standing there and my dog's sniffing the ground, and I looked up and I saw it, and it was just like right up there. And I said, why don't you just leave us alone and go away? I got hit with a beam. I could see it come from the spacecraft and hit me, and I was frozen in place. And then I lost time. And then the woman who I'd been communicating, texting with, had seen the beam and didn't know what it was about. But by the time my dog was still in the same place. I was still frozen in place, and then able to regain my facilities and finish my walking with my dog. And I'm texting her, did you see the beam? I saw it, but what happened? I got hit. She's like, what? I go, yes. She goes, how are you feeling? I said, I feel weird. It was almost like,
Excuse me.
it was like the inside of me was lightweight, and I, finally took my dog up and I could see through walls. I went into the bathroom to use, whatever, to use the toilet. And I could see there was a wall and the door was closed, and I could see my dog walking in the apartment and coming around. I opened up the door and went, hey there. And she was just like right there, and I could still see it. And I texted a friend in California, and I told her what happened. And she was like, oh my gosh, are you okay? I said, I think I will be. And I just said, when is this going to go away? Because I could see through the neighbors' apartments and stuff. And trust me, I did not want to see in there. And I could see up, I was on the second floor and I could see up into her apartment on the third floor. I just laid down and closed my eyes. And after 20 minutes, I heard, open your eyes, and I could see fine again. I wasn't seeing
They
through
communicated
walls.
with you to tell you, now, was
Yeah.
this punishment? Or
I
what?
believe it was. I believe it was.
Now,
And
when you're saying a beam, to visualize it, is it like what you would see in the cartoons where you have the little flying saucer and the ray of light come down?
and it wasn't a large ray of light. It was a certain size, direct beam.
But more like a tubular type beam then, or something.
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. I don't know where to go with that one.
Well,
I mean, no pain or anything, but you just felt funny. Felt out of
it
sorts.
was just right. It's almost like, you know how you feel when you're lightheaded, but you're not lightheaded?
Yeah.
It was
It's almost
that
like
type,
a case of vertigo in your belt.
but not quite, because I was lightheaded, but things weren't spinning around.
Okay.
I could still see fine. It was almost like a weightlessness inside my body. I felt like I didn't have any weight. And that was the weird part.
Now, as far as the aliens and the grays, you mentioned off camera, so they're manipulative. Is this one of the ways they're manipulative, like ease up on us, or?
Actually, 2017, it's funny how I got into writing. I was in high school, and one of my girlfriends introduced me to playwriting. And I found it very boring because you have to write the scene in and the lighting, and I thought, this is boring. And my girlfriend said, why don't you just write a straight book? I said, oh no, I didn't like it. So I didn't write at all. So I'm in my mid-30s.
Sorry. And
That's
you
okay.
can keep talking when I cough, since they won't be able to hear us. I'm sorry, though.
Okay,
I've
that's
been
right.
fighting a sinus infection, which I think I told you that in the past, too. So my throat's tickling me now. The aliens are manipulating my throat.
I'm not going to say anything with that. I've had enough of them now. No, but anyway, it was 2000. I was in my mid-30s, and I became disabled, and I was bored because you can't go to a senior center when you're 35 or 36. You can volunteer, but that's only for an hour, and there's only so much. The internet was new, and there's only so many Mario Brother games I could play. I was bored. So I was had my 3-month checkup with my doctor, and I said, I am so bored. I don't know what to do with myself. And he said, Gloria, why don't you write a book? He said, you have a way with words. So I started writing, romance and then crime fiction, and going on down, the road. I'm still writing. I got into nonfiction. Well, in 2017, and some, self-help books that I had written. Periodically, I would get all this information to write, and I would write. Well, in 2017, I published my last nonfiction book, and I said, I'm not writing anymore. I am done. I've had enough of writing. That was 5 years ago. I want to retire. I just want to have fun. I don't want to have a business or nothing anymore. Well, I was making different friends, and we were, going out to the movies or hosting in-home movie night with a group of us and stuff like that, and just having a good time. Well, I heard the call, a nudge in 2019, a couple of them, to write a book. And one of the men I was seeing at the time said, why don't you go back into writing? I said, I don't want to. I'm done. I don't want to do it. I'm enjoying my life not writing. So then I heard telepathically one day, and even at night, you need to write a book about your experiences. I said, no, I'm not doing it. No, I'm not going to do it. Here I think I'm fighting with myself. I don't realize I'm talking with them. February 10th, 2020. There is no physical evidence of why I should have had a complete blackout. I was medically fine. I face planted the sidewalk with my neck. I hit this part of my chin and I face planted the sidewalk. I should have broken my neck and ended up a quadriplegic. I sprained my right hand because I went full frontal right down on the sidewalk with my hand hit. And I had, where I was walking, I had a duffel bag, which I landed on with my chest. And I ended up and the man saw me across the street. He goes, are you okay? I said, I motioned for him to come over. And it was just like, what am I doing here? But I remember just before I went down, it was just like I couldn't stop myself. It was just like, no, I need to stop walking. And I couldn't. It was like I was being, pushed. And when I hit, I ended up, he helped me get up. I walked to the bus stop to get on the bus to come home. And I'm talking to my girlfriend. She goes, did you lose consciousness? I go, yeah, no big deal. Gloria, you need to go to the hospital. I said, well, let me call my other girlfriend then. And I called her and I said, can you take me to the ER? And she was going to a doctor's appointment right next to the hospital. She said, yeah, I can take you. Why? And I explained what was going on. And I said, I'm getting on the bus and I will meet you at the main terminal. And she said, okay. So I got off the bus and I found her car and she goes, how are you feeling? I said, my right wrist and hand hurt and it was swelling up. X-ray showed it was just a sprain, nothing broken. CAT scan showed no broken bones, no fractures, nothing. But when about 14 days later, I started having concussion symptoms. And people can have the symptoms from hitting your head. It can be 6 months to a year later. But mine was like 14 days later. And I went and had an MRI and it showed global brain damage. And I'm still relearning the English language. My reading level went down to a second grade, and I'm now still learning how to write grammatically correct. I have software that helps me with that. I have the free version. And and it was just like, okay, so, and there's still words I don't recognize. It was like today I couldn't come up with a word and I posted on Facebook and the person told me what it was.
Yeah.
Okay, then I deleted it so I wouldn't keep getting answers to the same question. And so I first started writing a children's book with pictures. And then my second book was crime fiction because of my gifting, I can speak with spirits and I help the police solve a couple of cold cases.
Okay.
So moving on, and they're both still open. As far as I know, they were open last. I'm not in communication with them anymore. So it came down to, we want you to write your story. Okay, I can do it in fiction form. And they're like, Gloria, no, we want it in nonfiction. So I started just getting it down in fiction form. And then a few days ago, they impressed upon me, what you need to do is write it in fiction form now. So I'll be starting that in fiction form. And it's time to get the word out. It's time, for my purpose of why I was brought here.
So you believe the aliens are, that the Greys are ready to expose themselves to the world, to the human?
Well, they already have. They've been exposing themselves on people's webcams outside their home. They see them, they trip the camera. All the species are ramping up their appearance with people from what I've been hearing on social media.
Have you had any experiences or encounters with other species than the grays?
Yes, I have. The Acturians have come to me. My first experience, I was after seeing the UFO, were the little green men who would come into my bedroom, and they're mean, they're nasty. I would have markings all over my legs and my feet from them. And I've also when I was living when I was talking about the beam where I was living on the east side of town, there was a Nordic that walked right by me, and she was like over 6 feet tall, very beautiful. And the woman was saying, came running up to me, going, "That was a Nordic. That was a Nordic." And I said, because I didn't know the species. But lately, I had telepathically, I thought I was dreaming, and there was a white albino reptilian, and he just showed himself. And then the next day, or the next evening, I saw the shadow of a reptilian in my bedroom. And then, like 2 days after that, I felt a presence, and I looked behind me and I saw the shadow of a reptilian following me while I was walking my dog.
Now, do they communicate the same way as far as?
They didn't say anything.
Okay, that you just saw.
So
it.
I don't know. I just saw them.
Okay.
So they haven't said anything. So I don't know.
Do you think that you're a common link in that you were able to see the different species, or is it just somebody like me just doesn't notice?
I had a telepathic message, and that I was being groomed for something which I can't go into. And I believe that's probably why I'm seeing the different species.
Okay. We're about done with this 20-minute segment.
Okay. Okay.
You ready?
Whoops. Now I am.
All right. Well, let's go back to the July 4th incident. Mm-hmm. You were talking with your girlfriends and you had a visit?
Yes, I was texting and making a joke. Oh, I wonder if they're watching me or watching the fireworks, and just laughed it off. Well, I'm not going to do that again. Two nights later, I'm laying on my left side because it faces, at the head of my bed is this big, huge window. And I see a light come through the window. And I'm thinking, and I feel something. I feel a presence. Well, I open up my eyes and I'm looking around the room. And then off the bedroom, I have two doors, and one of them leads to the bathroom and one of them leads out to the dining area. Well, I noticed above, by the foot of my bed, in the doorway that goes to the bathroom, a white orb the size of a basketball floating in the sky, floating in the air. And I went, oh my God. I'm just going to close my eyes here because I felt very uneasy. And I'm just going to lay there and maybe it'll go away. So
Right.
Next thing I know, I saw another beam of light and I thought, well, maybe, it went away, and I opened up my eyes and looked, and there was a second entity that was white and it was straight. So you have the orb, and then you have one with a slight bend at the head. And they were just staring. They're probably communicating with each other. And I thought, okay. And I was really scared, but I slowly reached over, picked up my cell phone, turned it on, and went to go record it, and they vanished. And I said, okay, I won't ever make fun of you guys again. I won't.
Now, I've had several of the interviews have spoke about the orbs, and the basketball size is a commonality there. That, as far as that particular orb, is it opaque at all? Would it be like a basketball that's just glowing white? Did it seem like it was corporal, or was it just,
It was a solid
not
white.
physical?
It was a solid white color. You know how There are some lights that you can get at Walmart that you hit the top
Mm-hmm.
of that look like a dome. That's the color that it was with the light on.
Okay.
And it was, and the other one was it was a little more translucent than.
Okay. Did it look as though if you were to stick it, if you had the window up and you could stick your hand out, would you have been able to feel it, or would it have just been like
It was in my
nothing?
apartment.
Or
It was in my apartment.
oh,
No,
okay,
it was in my apartment between the bedroom and the bathroom doorway.
okay. But you felt it was a solid type object.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay.
But yet they could go right through the window. That's the weird part. Go right through glass.
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. We were talking about your kids.
Mm-hmm.
Did you say you've actually been able to meet your kids?
Right. When I didn't know they were my children, my maid asked me, "Do you want to meet your kids?" And I said, "No, I don't want to meet them at all." But little did I know I had already met my daughter and my son. I was taken aboard the spacecraft and she was showing me technology. And she had brown hair and beautiful blue eyes. My mom had gray blue eyes. And, I didn't feel anything towards her, but yet I felt friendliness there and everything. And then I had the meeting before that, was like a couple of weeks before I met my daughter. I met my youngest son, only I didn't know it was him at the time. And he was the very matter of fact and showing me technology and telling me that and showing, I'm like, and I looked at him, I said, "Why are you showing me all this?" He goes, "Just be quiet and listen." So I don't know what they're downloading to me. All I know is that I can do technology without ever being trained. But getting back to my kids, it took me a couple of weeks just to get my head wrapped around that I had children who were alive. And then he told me, "You've already met them," and he gave me their names. And
Now, have you had any more communication with them since then?
not my son. Well, my son once, and I asked him, "Do you want to be in touch?" He said, "No, I don't really care for you. I don't really care about you. I didn't grow up with you. Nothing."
So there was no motherly child instinct there between him and you?
No, none, and none between my daughter and me. And I remember the second visit that, and I don't ask for these. They come to me, and she asked me some very pointed questions. She said, "Why didn't you, ever contact me? You could have." And I said, "I thought you were dead. I thought you were from a human child. I didn't know you existed." And she said, "How could you not when you had, relations with a man that could not have gotten you pregnant?" I said, "I was in my 20s. I didn't even want to accept what happened to me then." And she said, I asked her, she said, "Do you remember the time when you were living in California and told me the apartments?" I go, "Yeah." "Do you remember the time where you heard knocking on the door and you opened it up and I saw three I thought they were apparitions. And I looked like little children giggling and everything. And they got me fired from a job because they showed up and they took a bookcase. I'm like, "Don't you dare." And they took it and all the books went down. I got fired that day. And the guy looked at me like, "Whenever you come here, Gloria, weird stuff happens. We can't keep you anymore." That was at Johns Hopkins in Maryland. And she said, "That was me and my brothers. We came to see you. We wanted you to know." And they were like little kids, mischievous, just having a good time.
Well, the third child, the other brother,
Mm-hmm.
and you haven't met him at all.
My oldest son, no, I haven't. When I asked my maid about him, he said, I said, well, can I meet him? And he said, no, he went to the dark side. He doesn't do anything good. We don't talk about him. And when I asked my daughter about him, she said, we don't talk about him. He left what we would call a teenager, the teenage years. And all he does destructive things. And we don't have communication with him, and we're not allowed to talk about him.
And you may not know this. I'm just trying to throw it out there. The dark side, does this mean that there's a segment of aliens that are hostile toward humanity?
Yes, like with people, in every culture you have your good people and you have your bad people. Same with reptilians, with Greys, with Nordics. You have your good people and you have your bad people. And he went over.
So it's not necessarily a certain species of alien is hostile. It's a segment of a species would be hostile, and the other segment would be more, to the good side, benevolent, I guess.
Right, the side that they're doing research to further, a stronger race, and that's why we're being experimented on.
Okay.
Excuse me.
Well, as far as our discussion here, I know by you being on, you feel like this is something that can help others. Do you want to elaborate on that at all, as far as maybe what your feelings are, letting this information out, both to those that have had experiences as well as to those that haven't?
Well, I know some people that have been experiencers. I've met a couple of hybrids, and they're afraid of coming out because of the backlash and everything, and they keep telling me to stay safe. And they're younger than I am, and it's like, but if we don't talk about it, people are going to feel like they're going crazy. There are people self-medicating on drugs and alcohol, thinking that they're crazy because of this. People who have shunned them, who make fun of them. They're not alone. There are groups of us throughout the world, throughout every culture, who have had these experiences. And it's more talked about in other countries than it is in the United States. Canada is very open about it, where Mexico's, I believe, is open, but the United States, it's all hush hush. So you're not going crazy. This is true, it's bona fide, and the people who haven't had the experience, I've had somebody ask me, what are you smoking, Grandma? You don't belong on social media. And I just laugh it off, because if I were to take everything seriously, I'd be crying, I would be upset, and there may be days where somebody's comment may get to me. But then I just need to process it through so people will know that I don't want somebody probably like me or older has gone through their entire life thinking, what has happened to me? What's going on? Or it might be someone in their 20s or 30s. Like, I don't feel like I belong here. I feel like in my Earth family that I'm adopted, and that's how I felt. That would mean that you're a star child. You came from the stars. You're here for a specific purpose. You can stick it out. There are people you can reach out to who have experienced. Mary Rodwell is one who is over in Australia. You can reach out to her. She has a questionnaire. And because I reached out to her and I heard back within like 3-4 days. There are people who do understand, who have been there, and you're not alone. And just take comfort in knowing that, yes, we don't have control over what they do. We don't have control over this. But we do have control over our thoughts, and for the most part, and yes, they do manipulate, but just know, if we were in their shoes, we'd be doing the same thing. And I'm sure Americans have done things like this to further our own race. We do things on rats and animals and dogs and cats just to be able to sustain the human race. That's all that they are doing, is sustaining their race to make a hardier version for in the future.
By opening up, do you feel like there is any repercussion from, we get scared of this, the government?
There may be one day. I know I have repercussions from my neighbors one of the neighbors who was talking to me, and she's narcissistic and very controlling. And when I wouldn't let her control the temperature of my thermostat or anything, she called the police and said, I saw things that aren't really there. I talked to myself and there aren't really people there. I'm a danger to myself and my dog. And the police called and said, we're not going to take your dog away. I said, no, she's perfectly healthy. But we do think that you need mental health help. I said, when I had my head injury, I was in to be able to regulate my emotions for 2 years. I'm fine. And if I ever need to go back, I will. No, you must go to our health thing. Can I send you the paperwork? I went, no. So the police will get involved in what they think is right. You have a right to say no. They cannot institutionalize you against your will unless you are a true danger to yourself and they can prove it. And
Okay.
I do believe that there's going to come a point where the government may get involved. I don't know.
I mean, do you believe there's a black op type thing that's involved with this type stuff? Not just a quote, Karen neighbor that
I would say
don't know.
I
Or
don't.
maybe
I
not
would say
talk about
yes.
it.
I would say yes. Our government has more than we know. And from what I've looked at other governments and what they're doing and what eventually comes out in movies and films based on a true story, yeah, I would say that we do. If we look at it, the government wants, it's always need to know. And they're going to do what they can for security reasons for the United States and what they feel is right. I'm not defending them. I'm just believing that this is where they're coming from. And I do believe that there are some factions that do twist things for the greed, for the power.
Do you feel like there's anything that you personally need to worry about from, when I say the government, I'm talking about the U.S. government or the factions of the U.S. government that you don't have 3 initials for?
Me personally, I don't know. I really.
But you're not worried about it?
No, I'm not. I'm in my mid-60s. And I know that whatever I go through for my purpose is what I need to go through. And I'm not going to live in fear anymore like I have. What happens if people find out? It's been quite liberating for me to come out with my story. However much longer I'm here, I'll be here. Because I know when I leave here, I will join my daughter and my son. So that part I do know.
You know what? I think that's a good place to end it. Thank you for being on here, Gloria. And I'm hoping that I get to talk to you again.
I'm open to it.
As long as you're up for it.
I'm up for it
All right.
anytime, Bill.